Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I am Sam, I'm an artist, illustrator and an aspiring knitting designer coming to you from Dublin in Ireland. And if you're new to this channel, this is my attempt of a knitting podcast in which I tend to follow the classic knitting podcast schedule, talking about finished works, works in progress, acquisitions, if any, and spoiler, we don't have any acquisition this time. And you can find me all around the internet looking for Irish farm art or an Irish knitting podcast on Instagram. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back to this channel. It really means a lot. And I really want to thank all that liked, commented, share some love for my Inktober shorts that I'm uploading during October. They are little drawings that I'm doing for the month of October. Starting this challenge is called Inktober, so drawing with ink, and I usually add some watercolor on the top. It's just a little nice way to practice with my drawing, so thank you so much. I know this is a knitting podcast, but I do like very much to share my art as well with you all, and your likes, your comments really helps a lot the algorithm to push, let this channel grow a little bit, not only on the knitting content. So thank you so much. So last time I was saying that I probably wouldn't have podcasted much, but as it was expecting, the autumn feeling came rushing down the hills and I started knitting like crazy. I got back into my knitting mojo and I casted on a lot of things, a lot, for my standards are a lot of things. And I finished a few works I felt compelled to record a video for you today and show you what's going on. Otherwise my next video would probably last 3 weeks altogether. So, and the second reason is that this is probably too much information, personal information. I got a dental treatment to go through in mid-November, and I may not be able to podcast for a while after that. It's quite big and I'm quite scared, but let's not talk about my dentistry problem and let's talk about what we have here. What am I wearing? You've seen this on my last episode, blocking. This is the Mr. Casual number 4. Ta-da, this one. I know the model shows it much better. It's a pattern from Sandnes Garn that you can find in this lovely booklet. This is the Mr. Sandnes Garn 2015. Literally, I have knitted all of them. They are so beautiful as patterns, and if you're looking for patterns for a man, or if you want to adapt a male pattern for a female body, this booklet is just a treasure. Now, for the longest amount of time I have complained that I can't find the Sandnes patterns in Ireland or easily on the internet. Since then I found a couple of shops that are based either in France or in Spain, and I will try to put the links below in the description of those shops that have Sandnes pattern. So every now and then I do like to buy them over there. Now I have my eyes on another booklet that just came out They are all classic Norwegian yokes pattern, so I'm kind of wondering if I would need more Norwegian colorwork yokes in my pattern collection or not. This because, of course, when you buy a booklet, then you're probably going to buy some yarn as well to justify shipping costs mainly. And I disappointed. I don't want to end up spending hundreds of euros on wool just for a pattern. Anyway, the wool purchasing thing will come again, going through my works in progress, because it's becoming a drama over here. Anyway, this jumper comes from this booklet, is the Mr. Casual number 4. It's a gorgeous pattern. Simple stockinette jumper knitted in big fat harem weight yarn with saddle, shoulders, and just a mindless stockinette. You remember this yarn? This is Let Lopi by Istex. It's a gorgeous ink blue. I don't know if you can see the color well. The light is a bit grim today. We are experiencing a storm, but the yarn was used, or I did a cast on another jumper with that, a cable sweater, a gorgeous cable sweater, the Southern sweater, if I'm correct. Go back to my previous blogs, I tell you all about that. That unfortunately didn't work out for a combination of things. First off, the yarn, Let Lopi, doesn't really show off much the cable. It's a very rustic, very lofty yarn. At the same time, though, the fibers of the yarn, the wool, tend to stick together a lot, making the cable not really showing off very well or very much. And the second thing is that it's very dark blue, which is always tricky with cables. Although, in my mind, I do like a black iron jumper or a sweater cable. Well, it's an idea, we'll see. The second piece is that I found myself swamped with a sweater. I don't really like knitting cables, which is not true, because I do like knitting cables. I just find myself very slow. And yeah, it ended up in the frog pond, and I was looking for something really quick to knit up, and this Mr. Casual number 4 was a great, very quick knit. You don't really need any construction, math, sticking, nothing like that. It's just mindless and gorgeous. Now, I blocked it, I tried it on, and I thought, my first impression was I'm never gonna wear it. It's itchy as hell. It's very warm, but it's so super itchy. I'm wearing now a shirt underneath because this wool cannot touch my skin, literally cannot. I wouldn't imagine myself wearing a t-shirt underneath and just the jumper, because it's just craziness. Now, I have been wearing this while preparing my camera, my lights, and this video podcast, and I am finding the jumper extraordinarily comfortable, with the caveat that I have a shirt underneath. But it's really, really nice and warm, and once again, it doesn't sting too much, it doesn't itch when you are wearing a shirt underneath. And I'm gonna show you a little bit, if the camera allows me. It actually looks fantastic. The saddle shoulder is great, it fits perfectly, it's not too baggy, but it still has a little bit of a positivist, that is exactly what I wanted for this jumper. Now I have another jumper to show you that I want to put on, and I find myself not wanting to take this off now. Also, it's been very cold over here lately. It's mid October, and autumn is here, and the temperature are starting to getting a little bit lower. But with my mind, I'm still in full summer. Also because it's been quite shiny. The sun has been out. I've been running, exercising outside. So I haven't switched into autumn mood yet when it comes to my clothing. Now that I'm wearing this, I'm sure a switch will come. I will 100% recommend this pattern. It's absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if I'm going to knit another jumper in Let Lopi, because A, how many each jumper do you need in your stash, and B, I'm not too fond of big gauge knitting or Aran too chunky way yarn. They are kind of rough on your hands, and at the same time, I do prefer something lighter and nicer, a fingering weight, a sport weight jumper. Which brings us to the next jumper. Let me change and I come back to you in a second. So, here it is, I'm back, and this is my second finished work for today. You've seen this in my previous podcast as just a ribbing, if I'm right, a very work in progress. As you know, I prefer knitting colorwork, I prefer knitting bottom-up sweaters, I do prefer knitting with fingering weight yarn. And this became sooner my favorite knit over last couple of weeks. And I banged it out in just a few weeks. The sleeve took 1 day each, which for fingering weight yarn is literally nothing. This has a gauge of 23 stitches per 10 centimeters, which is a lot of stitches to knit. I use a combination of 2.5 and 2.75 millimeter needles. It's knitted in the round from the bottom and up. You seam the shoulders with Kitchener stitch, and then you cut it through and stick the sleeves. Now, I filmed my sticking situation the other day, and I may put the sticking part segment after I talk to you about this jumper, just because I would like to have some, some tips or some reaffirmation that I am doing the sticking right. So, if you are an experienced knitter and you like the sticking, please have a look. You don't need to watch the entire sticking segment, you can skip forward, but I really would like to understand if I'm doing that right or not, or if I should change something, or indeed if you would recommend me to do something different to make my sticking a little bit tidier, long lasting, and so on and so forth. If there are any best practices that I should follow, please let me know. If you're not bothered about seeing me stick this jumper, or you're scared because it's a very scary situation, you can just skip forward to the rest of the podcast. Anyway, let's talk about this sweater, because I call this on my Instagram profile a Frankenstein sweater. So I need to read what the name of the pattern is, because my memory is like the memory of a frog. So this is from Dalegarn, or Dale of Norway, which is a Norwegian yarn brand, yarn brand, and it's the sweater number 2076. It's a pattern by Anne Setre. I'm very sorry if I butcher your name, but you're gonna find all the description in the links below, or I just put something here usually. Anyway, pattern from Dalegarn, Dal of Norway. I was just browsing Ravelry, as it happens, looking for a jumper with reindeers for Christmas. And I couldn't find many. There were a few, but nothing that I was really attracted to, apart from this one. Only had 11 projects on the Ravelry page, but it looks amazing. It's a gorgeous jumper. So I started looking for the pattern. On the Dale website I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it anywhere else. I know that in the past I reached out to them to get the Cortina sweater pattern by Arne and Carlos that was published many years ago by Dalegarn. For some reason I didn't think of that. Why didn't I reach out to them? Anyway, I put one of the pictures that I found on Ravelry on paper, and I really I took one of those blocks of paper, which is all squared with checks. I use this to take notes in work. They are great paper from Italy, by the way. Every time I go back home I buy a stock of those little notepad with checks. Some reason in Ireland they only have line paper rather than, it's called graph paper, parentheses. So I put myself down with a picture, just scrolling into the picture and trying to count all the pieces over the stitches of the colorwork, and I came up with the colorwork design very close to the original. Now the pictures were quite old as well, so it might be a 95% close to the original. I made a couple of errors in the colorwork, not because of my drawing of the pattern, but because I was a little bit silly. So if you see the middle of the tree here, should be precisely in the middle of this little X mark of the colorwork band, and it's just one stitch on the other side, one stitch ahead of the middle of the tree. I don't know if you can see from the camera. You see there? It is just one stitch over, which bothers me immensely. What can I do? You can't really see it from afar, and it's just a nice complicated color work that you can't really see. There's a bit of color work on the cuffs and a bit of color work on the bottom towards the ribbing. So now that I'm standing, let me show you the jumper. Once again, it looks gorgeous. It's Frankenstein because couldn't find the pattern, so I draw down the color work from the Dale picture, and I use one of the patterns that I really know fits very well. It's the Marius number 5, if I'm right, from Sadness Garn, for the stitch counts and the construction. I know that the original design, the original Dale jumper is sticked, So I felt pretty sure that using another sticked jumper for fingering weight for my stitch count and to fit the drawing would be okay. And yeah, this is what turned out. So this is a Mario sweater with a Dale design. I really hope that both Sadness and Dale don't mind. I saved this on my Ravelry page under the Dale jumper, just because I really would like them to bring back the pattern. I think this is a fantastic little jumper. I wouldn't make any modification apart from the fact that this is a match, a pieced together jumper from different patterns, so there are plenty of modifications already. Yarn wise, I use cones of yarn, which is my favorite wool. If you have been over here for some time, the white one is actually this one, which is Ecru Super Soft by, I just read it, by Holst Garn. And green is Flannel Green by JC Rennie. Can't get JC Rennie anymore in Ireland without paying an extortion on shipping and taxes. So I'm keeping that cone very dear to me, and I know that I have another jumper quantity on the cone, so that must be a very, very precious jumper that I'm gonna knit with that wool. For now, it's living in my stash, but definitely this ecru here is great. It's gonna make another appearance in my next jumper or work in progress as well. Now, yeah, I think I told you everything. Once again, it's a great little knit. The color work is gorgeous. It repeats exactly the same on the back. Probably on the back you can see the third moose, or the third, are they moose or deers or reindeers? A little better. But yeah, I think this looks amazing. Now I'm gonna leave you to my little sticking video. I don't really even know if anything was filmed because I didn't watch back on the camera, but if you're not interested in seeing the sticking, just please skip ahead, and we're talking about the next and last finished work. So here we go. I am preparing a little bit of a yarn thread to mark my sticking. This is just a cotton thread that is very sleek, so it can actually slide through quite easily the wool. The first thing that I do is measuring my opening, marking the bottom and the top of the sleeve opening with one of these stitch markers, so I know where I should cut and sew and thread and do all the magic things. Now, following the middle stitch on each side, I just thread or sew a little stitch row, just to understand where the middle stitch is and to have a little bit of a visual reference when I'm sticking later on. And this, once again, is a contrasting color, is a very sleek yarn, so in theory we can just mark through. Now it's the first scary part. I'm going to use my sewing machine and sew all the way around that thread. The way that I was taught to do is to use a zigzag stitch, a very elastic one, so to set my elastic, my tension in the sewing machine quite high, and follow the thread with my machine foot, the red thread, in order to get some sort of seam allowance. Now the second scary part, we're gonna cut through, and I'm using the tiniest scissor I could find, just because I couldn't find a bigger one, but it turned out to be quite alright. I'm just cutting across the stitches where my red basting thread was laid down first, so I know that everything is nice and secure, and if I cut through I'm not going to lose any stitch, or my 100 hours of color work is not going to unravel. This is the scary part, but when you get over it, it's fine. Everything is secured well with the sewing machine stitch. The last part is to put your sleeves and sew them in. I do like to secure my sleeve in a few points on the opening, just to have an understanding on where to sew. And the last piece is to Kitchener stitch all the way around. I am using a Kitchener stitch. I know that people would use a mattress stitch as well. It's up to you. Really hope you enjoyed it. And once again, if you have any recommendation for me, please leave a comment. I'm always eager to improve my sticking. Also because sticking is one of my favorite ways to make jumpers. I feel like they fit me quite well. You know what I do like very much? I know this is super vain, but having had in my past and currently even a lot of body issues, I think this type of the stitching and the color work, and being the chest piece or the yoke a little bit underlight, makes my chest look bigger, and like my body looks better than with other construction. Like, I'm not fussed with circular yokes because they slant a little bit my shoulders. Anyway, next finished work, we have a pair of gloves. So these are, as I called them probably last year, fingerful gloves. And this is a pair of gloves that I had on my needles forever and ever and ever. I casted it on last winter, probably at the end of winter, and winter went, and these gloves were lost in the stash. I have a big wooden trunk where I put all my yarn. It's probably called in English a blanket basket, blanket something, wooden big thing, where you're supposed to hold or store your blankets, but I have yarn. Anyway, I put them there for some reason that I don't know. So the other day I was looking for yarn to start a new project, and this came up with lovely, super expensive, higher interchangeable needles that I thought lost forever. So I had one finished and the other one was kind of halfway through the ribbing of the cuff, and I just finished it, so it counts as a finished work. This is one of my favorite patterns for gloves, is the Gem Gloves by Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern on the Pearl Soho website. You can find this on Ravelry as well, and I'm sure everywhere else. It's extraordinarily well written. You don't have to knit the left and right gloves, just one glove that can be used both for left or right. Does it make sense? You know what I mean. I think they fit perfectly, and yeah, once again, they are super easy to knit up. I made some modification here. The pattern tells you to reduce the amount of stitches at the cuff. I think because this pattern is wrought for a female hand, which is quite smaller probably, and with a longer cuff. So the cuff is rolled up, and then you have a nice little cinch at the wrist, and then you start increasing. I didn't do that. I just started the increases at the how's it called? The thumb piece. Taking into account that I didn't decrease, so I got at the end 2 increases less. If you are a sock knitter and like me, you are bored with knitting socks and you have so many socks that you don't know what to do anymore with them, gloves is your friend. Now, I know you could knit mittens, and mittens are probably easier to knit and more popular because you just have the thumb gusset and fingers all together. Give a try to gloves, especially this pattern from Persoho. I think they are easy enough, but at the same time they need some brain power, especially when you are on the thumb. They take the same amount of yarn as a pair of socks, more or less, and they're just very useful, so you can get nice little gloves for the winter. I use for this opal yarn, Petro Blue, if I'm right. Opal is a German company, and this is their sock yarn. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the tag, the label anymore, so I'm not quite sure if there's any consideration on the yarn, but it's a very popular yarn. You can use any sock yarn. Be careful though of using Drops Fable. It tends to be quite holey and sheer when you knit gloves, when you knit socks. And yeah, I prefer this opal yarn because it doesn't give any sheer. It's very lofty, quite rustic as well. But at the same time, it has some nylon content, so helps. That was it for finish works. And we can start works in progress. What do you think? So, the first work in progress that I have, I'm gonna talk about this one. So, I only have, I think it's quite a bit considering that it's 2 days of work. Don't look at all the hands, but I have a bottom ribbing, a bit of color work, and a bit of the body. Let me tell you what this is. This is this jumper. This is the Foxtails jumper by the Petite Knitter. It's hopefully you can see the picture. It's a very famous, a very popular jumper. Is a colorwork bottom up with a circular yoke. All things that I love. A circular yoke, not that much, but I have had this jumper, this pattern, in my Ravelry library since I probably started knitting. It was the first jumper that I wanted to make, but the color work always intimidated me. It's a really intricate. Now, I know you can't see that. Let me see if there's a better picture without showing the pattern. There's not. So I'm gonna put a photo here. It's very intricate, 3 or 4 colors per row, which is not easy to knit. But I took the jump and I started it. It's going quite well. I already started my first 3 color work over here. In this little band there are 3 colors together working the same row, so you have to juggle 3 colors. We'll see how it grows. I'm using Ostgarn Super Soft once again. This is their flannel grey, absolutely my favorite color. I want to get more cones going forward, because I'm realizing this is my favorite wool. I love the finish works. I love knitting with a wool. It's all in all love, so why not getting more? And this flannel gray, I think, is their best color, of my favorite color. I'm using that accompanied with their ecru, and this is burnt orange. This burnt orange comes from Woolly Knits, and I bought it back a couple of years ago. There was a big discount from their website before the interesting thing, the Brexit came about. So I have this cone in my stash for a while. Now look at this cone and look at my face. Orange doesn't work with my features, doesn't work well. For a comparison, let me put the gray. The gray works so much better with my features than the orange. So I was torn about this wool. Should I just gift away the cone? Should I use it somehow? Now in the design there are little fox heads coming up and little pieces that are orange, so this works fantastically. Once again, I am knitting the second size. So if you know how my body works, you know that if I'm knitting with fingering weight yarn using 2.5 and 3mm size needles, more or less, that then can be 2.75 or 3.25, you know that the right size for me is at the waist, 240 stitches, using the specific combination of yarns and needles, 240 stitches. So when I choose a pattern, rather than swatching, which is not a good suggestion for you, but is good for me because I despise swatching, I always go for the closest size to 240. If I want a bit of positiveness, I go with a size that are over 240. If I want a tight fit, I go with a size that is under 240. In this case, I am going with a size that is a tiny bit under 240 stitches, which happens to be the second size. It is working out lovely. So I can't wait to get that finished. My next work in progress is another color work. Now it's horribly raveled up. I of course haven't blocked yet. So this is the back panel, the back of the neck and two shoulders with the arm opening over here of a sweater called, I need to read because it's so complicated. It's called Porcelain Sweater by Lene Holm Samso. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right. Once again, you find the description here or the link to the Ravelry page down below. It's published in Le Knit website, and I am knitting it in alpaca yarn. This is Drops Alpaca. It's 100% alpaca, 24 stitches by 32 rows. It's a beautiful jumper. The pattern says doesn't require any construction, but there's already some construction that is required. This jumbled of thin yarns is basically the top part of the neck and the shoulder, so just over here, and it requires Kitchener all the way through. Now I started this in a whim of using stash yarn because I found 3 or 4 balls of alpaca yarn in my stash, and I do love Drops Alpaca. It's once again one of my favorite yarns. It's the only yarn that is not superwash that doesn't itch me at all. For some reason, alpaca fiber doesn't itch. I don't know what's wrong with that. Anyway, it's a beautiful jumper with 3 or 4 stripes of very nice color work, which resemble a porcelain plate or a dish or something like that. And I choose to follow the color of the actual image because this was in my stash as well. The issue that I have there is that I more or less consciously realized or decided that I'm not following gauge. The patterns calls for a fingering weight yarn together with a mohair, which gives kind of a sport weight yarn. Now I'm using a very thin fingering weight yarn, which is the alpaca yarn, without any mohair or anything else with it, which gives me a very tight gauge. So stitch count is more or less fine. I went up and up and up on the size, so I should be alright. Row count is wrong. Now on the back piece that you've seen, this one. Now this part is meant to be the arm opening, and they call for a number of rows here to get to a number of centimeters for your arm hole. I had to knit more rows to compensate for my tight row gauge. It's fine. I don't know what will be of that. Now, I parked it for a couple of reasons. One is that I really wanted that foxtail sweater be done as soon as possible. And the second reason why I parked it, well, I knitted on it yesterday, but I decided now just to put it on the side, is that I am planning my Christmas vacations. I know it's October, I know talking about Christmas is not good, but I need to do that because my family lives in Italy. So I used to spend about the month of December down there, and if I bring some knitting, I can't bring cones of yarns. Of course I cannot, it's huge and massive, and I don't want to ball it up and end up with a tiny little ball of yarns. You know, I want to maximize my yarn usage. And balls like this are so much easier to carry, especially the alpaca is extraordinarily light. So I decided that will be my Christmas, my home, my Italian knitting jumper. A month, 20 days there means a lot of knitting because I'll be reclused in my childhood home. I will be working from home, so bringing my laptop, and every second I have in meetings when I can just pay attention to the camera but do something else, or when I have some, I don't know, reading time or something that doesn't require my hands to be active or my brain to be fully focused, I can dedicate to knitting. And every time I go back home over Christmas, I end up knitting a full jumper just by sitting in my room and knitting up. You know, back there I don't have to go out for a run, to clean up my apartment, to do the washing, to cook, nothing, because luckily my mom and my grandmother, all of them are there for pampering a little bit the young boy that is coming back home. So I know that is no good and I should do everything, but you know, it's a bit regimental, my family. You can't step into the kitchen when you're not asked to, so you can't just start and cook or help. Or I can't imagine starting cleaning the house or helping to clean, because I would be sent away straight away. I think my mother doesn't understand how I can live alone and do all these things by myself, because apparently I'm incapable of. Anyway, that was my second finished work in progress. I think we have a third. And indeed we do. Here it is. This is a design I am coming up with. It is a very long scarf. I am knitting this using the double knitting technique, colorwork technique. So you have two right side of the knitting, and it's just mirroring each other. So if the dots are yellow, mustard on the side, they are white on the other, and the background is the other way around. I'm using Darny by Studio Donegal for the yellow and Drops North for the white, which is a mix of alpaca and wool, both fingering weight 3mm needles. Now, seems quite long, but it's not long enough. From last time I have knitted this piece here. I told you I want to do one repeat of the pattern each day, and so I did, and it went down quite well. I probably would need the same length more to call this done. The issue is that I don't have any white yarn left, any Drops North left. So the only thing that I do have is a ball of Drops Fable sock yarn. It does look similar. It looks a little bit wider and a little bit more thin than Drops North. So I need to buy yarn. I need to buy yarn for a lot of things now. The alpaca jumper that I just shown you, the Lenit jumper, only has 3 balls of alpaca, of white alpaca, so I need at least other 4 to finish the jumper there. And I have the Drops North to buy too. So eventually I will end up to do a little bit of a purchase, and yeah, that is screaming buy yarn, buy yarn, buy yarn. Although of course I at the moment can't really splurge on yarn too much. I have a lot of expenses, you know. Becoming an old man requires a lot of expenses. I need to change my computer, I need to change my tooth and my phone, which I'm recording now, it's dying. A lot of things, and I don't want to think about all of those. Anyway, by the way, thank you for all that supported me on Ko-fi. Yeah, it really means a lot. Or bought my patterns, because we are in a bit of a tight situation over here, but everything is good. Everything will be fine. What else? That's it. I think that is it for today. Please let me know if you have any recommendation for me regarding Steeking, and if you enjoyed these videos, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all the things. And once again, thank you so much again for interacting with my shorts, my art videos. Really helps the algorithm to help itself, because, you know, being this like a knitting channel, when the algorithm sees an art video, plumber down the entire channel. And I know I should have kept my artistic video, my art video separate from this channel, but I can't be arsed. I will see you in my next podcast, and hope you're well, hope you're safe. See you soon. Bye bye.